warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we will discuss about rethinking the role of communicative competence in language teaching. But before that, I want to introduce my team. My name is Ritna and my friend.
And my name is Erika Wulandari. Let's to discuss about the topic. Okay everyone, the first material is about the evolution of the term communicative competence. The author, Celsia Murcia, revised and updated model of communicative competence, which synthesizes and elaborates on the author's previous work, and which further explores the role that this model of communicative competence could play in language teaching. In briefly, the evolution of the term communicative competence, starting with its original source by Himes, and then through the contribution of Canali and Swain, and then Canali and Salse Murcia. Okay, these diagrams of the evolution of the communicative competence will be shown in the next slide. Okay everyone, it is the diagram of chronological evolution of the communicative competence. First by Chomsky, it is linguistic competence, and then the next is Himes. Divided into two, there are linguistic competence and sociolinguistic competence. And then the next is Canali and Swen, and then Canali, and then the last is Salse Murcia et al. In 1995. It has a 5-part. First is linguistic competence, 2 strategic competence, 3rd sociolinguistic competence and actional competence, and then 5 is discourse competence. In 1995, the diagram has a model is a pyramid enclosing circle. The pyramid enclosing circle, let's shown in the next slide. Okay everyone, it is a pyramid enclosing a circle surrounded by another circle. The circle inside the pyramid is discourse competence, the core or central competence. The 3 points of the triangle are the top-down socio-cultural competence and the bottom-up linguistic competence and actional competence. And then the arrows indicate that the various components are constantly interacting with each other and the discourse component. This construct thus places the discourse component in a central position where the lexicogrammatical resources, the actional organizing skills, and the socio-cultural context all come together and shape the discourse. The circle surrounding by the pyramid is strategic competence, an available inventory of communicative, cognitive, metacognitive strategies that allow a skilled interlocutor to negotiate meanings and resolve ambiguities and to compensate for deficiencies in any of the other competencies. Okay everyone, it is revised schematic representation of communicative competence to describe communicative competence for language teachers.
Okay, the next one is about sociocultural competence. This most recent model maintains the top-down rule of cultural competence. Social-cultural competence refers to the speaker pragmatic knowledge. This includes knowledge of language variation with reference to social cultural norm of the target language. Celso Marcial et al. Describe several sociocultural variables, and there are 3 of which are most crucial in terms of the current model. The first is social contextual factors. Explain about the participant age, gender, or power and effect. The second one is about stylistic appropriateness. That is about politeness strategies, genres, and registers. And the last one is about cultural factors. This one is about background knowledge of target language group. Next is about discourse competence. The purpose model also maintains the central role of discourse competence in any construct of communicative competence. Discourse competence refers to the selection, sequencing, and arrangement of word structures and utterances to achieve a unified spoken message. This is where the top-down communicative intent and sociocultural knowledge intersect with the lexical and grammatical research to express messages and attitudes and to create coherent text. Kelso, Mercier et al. Describe several sub-areas of discourse competence, four of which are most important with regard to the current model. The first one is about cohesion. Cohesion is important part of written text to be related to word or sentences that stick together. The second one is about thesis. Situation grounded achieved through use of personal pronoun, textual reference, and etc. The third one is about coherence. Coherent is the way sentence in the paragraph is arranged. And the last one is about generic structure. The generic structure is formal schema that allow the user to identify an oral discourse segment of knowledge. The first one is about phonological. Phonological includes both segmentals and suprasegmentals. The second one is about lexical. Lexical is knowledge of both content word and function words. The third one is about morphological. Morphological is part of speech, grammatical inflection, and productive definitional process. And the last one is about syntactic. Syntactic is constituent or phrase structure, word order, basic sentence types, modification, coordination, subordination, and embedding. So, distinction is important and will be discussed further of both competence are described. The next part is about formally competence. Formally competent is the counterbalance to linguistic competence. Formally competence refers to those fixed and prefabricated chunks of language that speakers use heavily in everyday interaction. It has been largely ignored prior to seminal work by Pauli and Sider, 1983, Pauli, 1992, and Netiger and DeCarico, 1992, whose work brought this domain to general attention. The formally competence, there are three important cases. The first one is about routines. Routines is fixed phrases like of course, all of a sudden, and formally chunk like how do you do? I'm fine, thank you. How are you? And etc. The second one is about idioms. For example, to kick the bucket. It means to die and to get the axe. It means be fired or terminated. The last one is about lexical frames. For example, I'm looking for blah blah blah. See you afternoon or tomorrow or next week and etc. So, formally competence has grown in importance. Much language pedagogy has yet to catch up with this fact. And the next part will be delivered by my friend Erika.
Okay, the next is interactional competence. The bottom-up counterpart to the more global top-down sociocultural competence is the hands-on component of interactional competence. Interactional competence has at least three sub-components relevant to the current model. First is actional competence, knowledge of how to perform common speech acts and speech acts sets in the target language involving interaction such as information exchanges, interpersonal exchanges, expression of opinions and feelings. And then the next is conversational competence, inherent to the turn-taking system in conversation described by Sage et al. 1974, but may be extendable to other dialogue genre, like first how to open and close conversation, and then second how to establish and change topics, and then the third how to get hold and relinquish the floor, and then etc. The next is strategic competence. Strategies for language learning and use are specific behaviors or thought processes that students use to enhance their own L2 learning. Such behaviors are either first, learning strategies, or second, communication strategies. We know that the learners who can make effective use of strategies, example, who have strategic competence, tend to learn language better and faster than those who are strategically inept. And then the three are most important for our purposes. First, cognitive. These are strategies making use of logic and analysis to help oneself learn a new language through outlining, summarizing, note-taking, organizing, and reviewing material, and etc. And then the next is metacognitive. These strategies involve planning one's learning by making time for homework or for preparation and engaging in self-evaluation of one's success on a given task or on one's overall progress. And then the last is memory related. These are strategies that help learners recall or retrieve words through the use of acronyms, images, sounds, or other clues. And then the other crucial strategies, it has five. First is achievement. Strategies of approximation, circumlocution, code switching, miming, and etc. And then the second is stalling or time gaining, using phrases like where was I? And then could you repeat that? And then the next is self-monitoring, using phrases that allow for self-repair, like I mean. And then the next is interacting. These are strategies that include appeals for help or clarification, that involve meaning negotiation, or that involve comprehension and confirmation checks, and etc. And then the last is social. These strategies involve seeking out native speakers to practice with, actively looking for opportunities to use the target language. So, what are the implications of a model for language pedagogy? With a revised model that is comprehensive and accurate, it suggests a number of principles for the design and implementation of language courses that aim at giving learners the knowledge and skills they need to be linguistically and culturally competent in a second or a foreign language. And then the importance of culture. The goal of language instruction is communicative competence. Language instruction must be integrated with cultural and cross-cultural instruction. And then a general knowledge of the literature and other arts that are integral to the target culture should be part of language instruction as should basic knowledge of the history and geography associated with the target language community. The social structure of the culture should also be covered by a family, courtship, and marriage, gender roles, and etc. Especially if the target culture differs in important ways from the learner's culture. Political and educational system should be introduced as should the major religions and holidays, celebration and important customs. These topics can also serve as content for language instruction with special focus on areas of cultural and interactional differences. Uh, Among others, have shown that teaching a language through content is one of the most effective means available for achieving communicative competence in a second or foreign language. The next is the importance of discourse and context. Much foreign language instruction is still done with word lists to be memorized and sentence patterns to be practiced using meaningless exercises and drills. Current pedagogy, Salsemuria and Olstein, 2000 argues the language instruction should use materials that are well contextualized and meaningful to learners. In addition, the learning objectives should be grounded in some type of real world discourse, like a story, a dialogue or conversation, a cartoon strip with accompanying language, a radio broadcast, a film, and etc. The goal should be for learners to interpret and produce meaningful discourse, yet also to protect the phonological features, words, formulas, and grammatical structures that are salient in the discourse providing the content. If the discourse and content selected for a language instruction are accurate and authentic with respect to the target language and culture, then criticism of artificiality can be avoided and language learning has the potential to become a genuine exercise in communication. Of course, the social contexts that are simulated in learning activities must also to be realistic, and the learning activities should include authentic tasks.
The next one is about the need to balance language as a system and language as a formula. Traditionally, language teaching has focused on language as a system and mastery of the target pronunciation language. Generally speaking, the speaker should know enough about the person he is talking to choose exactly from among these talk sayings. Many of national functional language syllabus that has provided an inventory of this talk expression, and student task is to choose from a collection of words or phrases that are appropriate from a particular situation. The pedagogical challenge is to maintain balance, which is systemic, formulation, and aspect of language interaction must all be handled effectively language interaction. Generally, for each social move or function, there is a stock of potential utterances. Speaker must know enough about their interlocutors. Big aspect of interaction. This is no way the traditional teacher fronted language classroom can help learners practice the dynamic nature of canine interaction in their language target. Rhythm and intonation, body and eye movement, and other aspects to face communication practice in pair and small group. Teacher and student need to have access to movie clips that are demonstrate realistically the total behavior of the interlocutor during oral communication. Such videotapes or film clips be used in several ways to get language use. The first one, watch segment with the sound to be observed, described, and imitated no verbal behavior. The second one is listen to segment or voice only to focus on language, rhythm, intonation, pitch, time, and volume, as well as grammar and vocabulary. And the last one is watch and listen to full segment to play the role of have similar interaction. Finally, the teacher must record the student performance so that the student can be observed themselves and see where they need to improve. So, feedback from teacher and peer is very useful here as well. The next part is about need to focus on strategy over time. Teaching vocabulary while to memorizing words and phrases can be covered. Then, teaching with a reading passage, ways of guessing the meaning of words in context can be discussed. Make use of language strategies effectively can be studied further, and students do not need to use various language learning strategies. So, teachers have to integrate some strategy training and some discussion of strategy in their language class so that students can explain to others what they are doing to master the language. And this is the sample lesson outline that follow provides one such example. In the sample lesson outline, there are many lessons. The first one is general topic. In general topic is raising awareness of cross-cultural issues with movement. The second one is content focus. In content focus can increase understanding of the different cultures in each country. The third one is grammatical focus. Grammatical focus use of do's or don'ts in giving and take the suggestion. The fourth one is lexical focus. In lexical focus, new vocabulary or new phrases depending on learners to do the activities they should discuss and practice. The fifth one is material or text. In this material or text, comprehension of sites which have different meaning in each country. Then, activity. Activity cohesion text. Student makes the meaning of Q by country or region. And then, presentation. In presentation, student can review how to ask for and giving advice using should on don'ts in question and answer. And in the role play one, students practice directly what they have learned from the focus on of the context. And then in the role play second, students practice directly what they have learned in the material or text. And the last part is discussion. In discussion, the teacher leads the class discuss about other guests can have some differences from culture to culture. The last part in our discussion is about conclusion. In conclusion, the model and example lesson outline presented in this paper show the communicative competence as it is goal must be taken from linguistic, cultural anthropology, social linguistic, and other relevant fields of social and science literature. All different learning objectives such as sound, word, grammatical structure must be presented in rich contextual manner. The discourse that discourse the purpose of content in the content meaningful to a student. Teaching materials must be learner-centered. The learning assignment should be interactive with peer work, group work, role playing, and etc. And in this PPT, there are 6 samples of tests and activities designed to encourage interaction. The first one is obtain information or opinion by a phone call or email message in the target language. The second one is obtain information by interviewing someone in target language. The third one is summarizing the core discourse segment with partners. The fourth one is play a role in a series of speech acts to develop scripts. The fifth one is develop or write advertise to sell something product in the target language. And the last one is read and publish class newsletters about cultural differences between the target language community and the first language. A society with a model must dynamic but look static. It means that the application of the model is relative than absolute and through needs analysis and curriculum development process. Models proposed must be adapted to communicative needs the learners. So, I think that's all from us. Thanks for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.